everyone, I'm Georgia and this is The Sound of Georgia. A few weeks back in my Julie Andrews History Darling Lily video, I mentioned a video essay by Better with Bob. In said essay, he talks about just how specifically Darling Lily is a work of metafiction. But as I was watching that video in preparation for my Darling Lily history video, it brought up something that made me think. And I have come to a startling revelation. Sound of Music does not have a happy ending. There, I said it. But I'm sure you're asking me, the film's tagline is literally the happiest sound in all the world. How can it not have a happy ending? Well, just think about it for a minute. What exactly happens at the end of The Sound of Music? Well, the family has to flee the country to escape the Nazis, and it ends right as they're doing that. So is that really the definition of happy? The film does have a happy ending, I guess, but it's right here. But we've still got another half hour or so of movie left. And there was actually a cut of the film that was released somewhere where it ended at the wedding. So I guess that specific cut got a happy ending. But that's not really what we're talking about here. For every other release of the movie, where we have the half hour left, what actually happens after the wedding? So the Anschluss has happened, and Austria's yielded to Hitler, and if you were to hold the same beliefs as Georg, which not everybody did, but if you did, you were in trouble. And with Georg being the famous war hero that he is, things are extra bad, so they need to get out. And as I said, the film ends with the start of them getting out, rather than when they are quote-unquote safe. And when you get down to it, it's not just The Sound of Music. Every adaptation of the Von Trapp story ends with the escape. The Trapp family actually ends when they're on Ellis Island, which is actually something that happened in real life. In the movie they charm everyone with their singing, and that's how they get out. That movie got a sequel. But it's still not a straight happy ending. The anime ends with them arriving in New York, so I guess in a way it has the happiest ending in regards to how safe they are, but still. And then you've got Life of Music, which is Agatha's story, not Maria, and yet it still ends with, drumroll please, the escape. We're ignoring the framing device element in that movie. And the stage version of Sound of Music could actually be considered a little more grim. Initially, Rodgers and Hammerstein actually wanted to end the musical on Ellis Island, just like what happens in Die Trapp Family. Because the movie came out in the mid-60s when the Vietnam War was happening, the political elements had to be toned down a bit. But the musical didn't have that issue. The Elsa-Georg relationship is much more politically driven in the musical, whereas in the movie we've got that pseudo love triangle thing going on. In the musical, the reason the relationship ends has absolutely nothing to do with Maria. Also in the musical we find out Max is definitely in trouble for his part in helping them escape. In the film it's kind of left ambiguous, but on stage you clearly see him get arrested. Really, it makes me think of a quote from Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, which is, "The problem with happy endings is that they're either not really happy or not really endings." I love John Green quotes. That quote in the middle of my pinboard is actually from The Fault in Our Stars, which is hardly my favourite John Green book, but I just absolutely love that quote. The thing with Sound of Music is it's based off real people and real events. The rest of the quote in Turtles All the Way Down says, "In real life, some things get better and some things get worse." And real life doesn't have a happy ending. So naturally, neither do musicals that are about real life. The King and I ends with King Mongkut dying. In Mac and Maple, the final song is literally called I Promise You a Happy Ending, despite the ending being disastrous in more ways than one. And nobody in Hamilton gets a happy ending, but that is a topic for another video. The Von Trapps got their happy ending after they got to America, and once they had formed the very successful singing group. They had formed that before they left, but it was still their career by the time and after they had got to America. But none of the adaptations want to tell that story. With stories about real people, I don't know if you can get a happy ending, because it's more than likely that these people didn't. Musicals like Grease and Annie and probably even Hairspray, and any Disney musical, all have happy endings, because nobody actually existed. Now that's not to say fictional characters automatically equals happy ending. Romeo and Juliet. And if you want to transfer that directly to musicals, West Side Story. But I think giving a happy ending to a story about real people almost defeats the purpose of it being about real people. Back to the Better with Bob essay, Darling Lili has a happy ending. And yet, it was based on the story of Mata Hari, at least partially. But it's not Mata Hari. Even though her story has a lot of the same elements as Mata Hari's, Lili Smith is allowed to have a happy ending because she's not real. Mata Hari, on the other hand, is executed. So, with all this, what does that mean for Sound of Music? Does that mean Sound of Music has a sad ending? And if that's the case, how on earth is it still the most popular family film of all time? Well, it's not a sad ending. It's not a happy ending, but it's definitely not a sad ending. The best word I can use to describe the ending of Sound of Music is hopeful. Stories don't need straight happy endings to resonate with us. Sound of Music doesn't stick with us simply because of the characters and the music, but because of the themes. And the themes like love and faith and family and patriotism are universal, no matter where or when you are. Those things stick with us more than an ending that is 100% happy. And an ending like the one we got was enough for audiences of 1965. An ending that, when you really get down to it, can be best described as hopeful, with a tinge of grimness if you look too much into it. Which, for the record, I do. And I think sometimes hopeful can be more powerful than happy. However, just because I look at it that deeply, I hope that doesn't mean I have somehow ruined Sound of Music for you. And that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know, do you agree with me that Sound of Music doesn't have a straight happy ending? Or do you disagree, and do you think it does? I hope you're all staying safe. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my video next week. So long for a while!